So let's work further with this shape, and before we drop it into ZBrush, let's just double check everything, check out the reference, and what I actually can see here, that this trigger guard part is a different part. You can see like this slight seam over here, like on the reference, like this. So this makes you understand how the mold of this plastic part was done. So, but like by seeing this small seam, we can say that it's just a different part, then just moved into the frame. So I guess I'll use this part separately. I'll save this part, but we'll separate it out of the main frame. So let's do that. Let's select these faces like this. Control and hold Control and Shift, and Control to deselect, and right click, and no, not Shift right click, detach components, and it does not work. Detach. Somehow it's not detaching. Why? So okay, let's go the old school way. Just duplicate the mesh, go into face mode, do the same thing again, like so, and invert selection by holding Shift and selecting everything. Now just delete this, and we have this part separate. I'll just hide it. I'll call this trigger guard so that I could find it in Maya, and for now I just hide it. And at this frame part, I'll just delete these faces like so, and I'll make this shape without trigger guard. So let's go like this. Now select edges, Shift drag to extrude, rotate, same thing here, just rotate, preserving the proper edge flow, like so. I'm doing this pretty roughly right now. No need to be super accurate. I'll change it later. Like this. Go to perspective mode. Let's bridge this part. Modeling toolkits, bridge. We have to select edges. Like so. Yep. Alright. Now let's close these holes. Bridge as well. I should actually go into symmetry mode. Yeah. Select the edges, close holes. Now let's just connect some of the vertices like this. Not leaving too much of n-gons. I mean, like, they're not super bad, but it's always better to have clean topology, especially at this kind of an important part. Just go and connect this one before exporting into ZBrush, because ZBrush is not supporting n-gons. So you better like manually create triangles, or ZBrush will do this for you. Okay, so now let's smooth the mesh by hitting 3 and adjust the edges so that it would fit the reference in the best way, like so. Yep. Okay. Okay, so this looks nice. Now let's export this thing into ZBrush. Delete these supporting edges. Control backspace. Well, if you hit just backspace, you will still have vertices over here. So I select the edges and hit Control backspace so that no vertices left except here. Okay, let's weld those. And same stuff on the bottom. Control backspace. Go to object mode. Okay, so now let's drop it into ZBrush. Here's our scene. So an insert sphere, import it into sphere, symmetrical triangles only. Yep, like this. And now let's create a folder, frame. Yep. And now let's crease these parts and hit D. Yes. All right. And let's increase the amount of dynamic subdivisions to 3. Well, actually, I don't really like this place over here, because you can see this flow. We can fix that in ZBrush. Just go into lasso mode, select these vertices, turn on transpose master by clicking W. Here's the pivot, center the pivot, and just move out those verts like this, so that the distance would be the same as here, pretty much the same, not exactly the same, but somewhere there. And so the smoothing part would look better. Same thing for this vert. As you can see, like, operating vertices in ZBrush, it's not that logical and straightforward as in Maya, for example, or classic polygon modeling software like Max or Maya. But you have to get used to this. So yeah, now we can see the edge flow is more natural without like something sticking out too much or something like that. I actually would like to add an edge, supporting edge over here. It gives us this crazy edge flow right there, but I guess it does not matter right now. No, it's not affecting the shape in any way, so I'll just leave it like that. It's okay. So I'm not paying attention to this part as the magazine sticks out because the magazine is beveled at this point. So it's okay, I can just hide it for now. Yeah, like this. Okay, so let's go into this tricky part with different cutouts on the frame, like this part. As for these things, I guess I'll do those afterwards in Substance Painter because they're not that significant and they just like straight up and down. They do not form any like silhouette change or something, so it's pretty acceptable to make these things afterwards, like painting the normal map or something like that. But like these cutouts, these need to be modeled because they affect the silhouette. So let's start with this side one. This is a pretty tricky one. As you can see on the reference, as it wraps around the trigger part right here, but I actually won't go this way by wrapping it around because this is too complicated for now. Let's just go with the side plate that will cut out the frame part, and we'll see how it's gonna work afterwards. So in order to do that, I'll start with a simple box, just as usual. Turn out the symmetry, don't need that. I'll delete these faces so that I have only one face and I don't have to pay attention to other vertices. So I'll form this thing only with these vertices. Like this, you can see I'm following the inner shape, the inner line of this shape, like this. This thing goes entirely the whole way through the frame. So these guys should be beveled. No, not this way. Nope. Okay. Let's give it a bit thickness. Select this face, shift drag to extrude. Select these faces and flip the normals right here. Okay. Let's go back. Now let's select this edge. Like I'm selecting this part and then deselecting these edges and these, and so I have left only this one. Okay, so now bevel this with a couple more segments. Let's go with 3. Same thing with here. 3 segments. Yep. Okay. So in order to make this line straight, I'll add a supporting edge right here, somewhere here and here. All right, and now I'll extrude the whole part. Go into side view. I've selected all the perimeter faces. Now Control E, and let's just drag it out like this. Okay, so now let's edit this part. Move it higher, like this. I'm trying to follow this silhouette of the cutout. Same thing here. And as you can see, the thickness of the cutout wall here is thicker and here is much thinner, so I'll have to do that as well, like this. Should be followed with this side as well. And let's form this transition smoother. Make it softer and just better looking. Okay, so in order to make this proper form, just select this face and drag it out like this. And here we go, this is our form. I usually tend to connect at least these vertices just for better transition into ZBrush. Okay, so let's unhide our mainframe form. And as far as it goes to the depth of this cutout, it's really hard to tell how deep it is, so I'll just have to eyeball this, and just to make it look nice and somewhat like this, so I cannot go 100% accurate with this. So to make this thing easier to adjust, I'll drop it into ZBrush. Let's go into ZBrush, duplicate, import. As you can see, I'm using just one for naming those meshes. I don't name them because every time it's a different mesh. So now let's crease those surfaces that should be sharp, like this one, this one, this one, and this one. Can hit D. All right. Now let's move it to the folder by holding Control and up arrow like this. By holding Control and upper arrow, you just move your subtool through the folders and the hierarchy higher, but when you just hit arrow up, you just select a different subtool. So, okay, so now let's set it to subtract and move it into the frame. And as you can see, it is cutting. It is cutting out our shape. Yep. I need to move it all the way through because the edge, like this edge, was formed on the base of the reference. So it should be, if I'm moving like more outwards, you can see that this line goes in and it's not corresponding the reference. So I have to stay like almost at the very end. And now let's check the reference. Here it is. And I don't really like how it looks for now, this shape, but it's quite okay, but still needs some adjustments. So I can do that just in ZBrush, Shift D, and just like by selecting those vertices, I'll form the proper shape. Like so. Like so. I'm moving the pivot point by holding Alt and dragging. Like this. I'm just trying to make the outer rim to match the inner rim because the previous version was not matching at all. Yeah, something like this. This looks nicer. So, and as you can see, I think that this thing is too deep. So I'll just select this rectangle tool, select these vertices, and just move them in like this. Yeah, that is more accurate, I think. Looks more promising. Okay, another thing is this line over here, because on reference, those two, like this curved edge and this flat cut, they meet somewhere here, and they just blended onto each other right from this point. But I have this line over here, and I guess I'll fix that by adjusting this shape. Shift D, solo mode. I'll select these vertices, invert selection, turn off the solo mode, click D for smoothing, and just move it up like so. Yeah, that looks better, but still I think I should do the same thing for these guys. Like this. Yep. Like this. And as you can see, the color of this cutting out shape is different whether you select the subtool. That's because it indicates what subtool you're selecting right now, so it's lighter. But if you want to make all these guys same color, you just apply, turn on the polypaint with this thing, and now it just shows the polypaint, and the default polypaint for all the subtools in ZBrush is white. So now it's all the same color. Okay, so we're definitely on the correct direction with this. But the only thing is that you can see the transition here is really soft and round, and as well as this thing here. So I would like to achieve this effect. And I guess the best way to do that is to select the frame solo and just select these guys. I think I hit this guy's invert selection. Hold D and click D, I'm sorry, and scale those inwards. Turn off the solo mode, not that hard. Scale it inwards. No, it's not gonna work like that. Well, okay. All right. Okay, fine. For now, I'll keep it this way because this is the finer details. Right now, I'm forming the main shape, so this thing will be dealt later when I'm going to polish all the details. So for now, it looks okay. So let's symmetry this part to other side. So in order to do that, you just select the subtool, duplicate it, move into the folder, back into the folder like this, and I have this mirror here. You go into deformation mirror by X, you can see here, and same thing, selected as subtract like this, and just merge those subtools together. Go into merge down like so. Now it's one subtool. Okay, so let's savor the scene, do that as much as possible. because all the programs tend to crush, especially ZBrush, Maya, all those guys, they really like to crush. Okay, so now let's make some sort of form of this thing. This is pretty complicated, and I'll show you the way how to make this happen. So obviously this thing is a Picatinny rail for a flashlight to be installed on a gun, as you can see it over here. And it also is connected with this like cutting out shape, like this. And it all forms one single like pretty complicated form that cuts out the plastic part. So in order to do that, I will have to merge together two anti-forms, one for Picatinny rail and one for this crazy thing. So when it comes to Picatinny rails, it's much easier to have just a blueprint of it with all the parameters. For Picatinny rail, so this is the Picatinny rail blueprint. It's much easier to make a shape out of these numbers because it is like uniform and it is all everywhere the same. So like this is the most common and obvious way to do that. So let's go into Maya. Let's just delete this thing and go into side view, start from the box like so, and let's go with the width, and the width of this thing is 0.835. 0.835, 0.835, like this. And let's go with the height of the rail, which is 0.164. 0.164. Oops, not that parameter. This one. Okay, so this is the height. All right, so next part is not that important because we have the major dimensions. So let's add a supporting edge here and select edges and just scale those inwards like so, and go to this face, extrude it, go inwards like this, and extrude it again for a flat surface. Right now I'm just doing the rail, I'm not doing the anti-form of the rail, I'm just doing the rail. So the width is pretty much there, and let's try to match it for the reference. Here it is, like so. This thing is a bit higher, so let's just move these guys here. This thing is like so. Well, actually it's not that angular like on the blueprint. For pistols it's usually like with rounded bottom part. Try to find a better reference for this. Well, yeah, you can see it's rounded like this, no sharp edge over here, just rounded. So the toughest part in this cutout is this surface, So we'll try to do that one. So I have almost done the Picatinny rail part like this. Now select face and do another extrude like this, which is, let's turn on the symmetry, which is like this, or even like this. All right. So now let's first of all let's split this thing into halves by connecting this thing, but without symmetry because it's messed up with the symmetry. Like this still. What the hell? Why is it like this? Control Z. Yeah, something was messed up. I just selected all the vertices and welded those together so that those two that were like really close to each other, they merged together, and now I can like connect the whole part and split it into two. Delete the half, go into object mode, delete even, like actually delete even this part as well, like so, and this one, this face as well. And now just select this edge, shift drag, shift drag, shift drag, snap it to this point, and bridge these guys together. Now close this hole as well as this one. Right now I'm doing half because the half is easier to manipulate. I will have to adjust all of these shapes before I go into final, so that's why I'm just doing the half of it. You can always use symmetry, but it can mess up at some point, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay attention to that right now. I just want to concentrate on this shape, so that's why I'm not using it. Now let's flip normals like this, and let's move it to the proper, turn off snapping, to the proper, place it in the correct place, whatever. Okay, like this. Now let's check if this thing works in ZBrush. Well, actually I can do the smoothing of this edge right here, just like on the reference. Couple more segments. Not sure it's gonna affect it, but I will have it anyway. Why not? Like this, and the supporting edge over here. Yep, like this. Okay, now let's drop it into ZBrush and check if it's working. Duplicate it, move up, import this, symmetrical triangles, set to subtract. Yep, this is it. This is pretty much how it should look like. This big gap is just exactly for this cutout, so I'm definitely on the right direction. So let's do this cutout separately, and then we'll just merge those together in order to form this single like surface. So right now it's not that like understandable, I suppose, but it will be later. When I'm done, you'll know what we were doing here. So start with the box as well, as usual. Delete the faces, like so. Move it like this. The same thing here. I'll start with the inner part. Oops. Like this. You can see that this part is actually angled like this. Now select the edge and just extrude it somewhere like this. Like move the vertices so that there was a proper edge flow. Extrude it again. Flat it out, like vertically. Now let's move just these vertices out. I'm not caring too much about this thing. This thing will be easy because it's just another cutout. It's not affecting with any other cutout. I'll just do that later. For now, let's do this somewhat like this. Now let's snap this edge to this corner so that they will match. Right, snap two verts like this. Now let's extrude those faces inwards like this. Flip normals. And let's select these guys. Select the face, shift, double click the next shape, the next face, and it will like select the whole loop of faces. Go into side view, Control E, and drag it out. Now let's just edit that. Like so. Snap it to the height of this vert and like this. All right. So let's add supporting edges here so that the line goes straight, and it is a line. We have a supporting edge here as well already. Let's move it inwards a bit more. This one outwards like this. And just like the previous, select these guys and move them in like this, right? And I also would like to take this face and snap it to this vertex like this so that we have flat surface here. All right, and okay, let's just drop it into ZBrush, move it towards the frame and see how it's gonna work. Duplicate one. Whoa, something happened. Yeah, this thing messed up just a bit. Snap to point and do this. All right, let's re-export it. Right. Now let's crease the needed edges like this, right, the top, this part, yeah, that's okay, this will do. Move it up turn off solo and subtract and just move it in. Well, sometimes when you hit the transpose tool, the pivot is somewhere in the scene, and when you try to move your canvas, the camera rotates along the pivot, which is somewhere in the scene, and it's hard to change your view, to navigate through your viewport. So in order to fix that, if you don't want to change your viewport, just hit Y and you will switch your transpose master from classic Gizmo to this older version of ZBrush manipulation tool, which is this ruler that you can drag in anywhere you want. So the trick is when you just drag it here and go back into classic pivot mode, it will appear at the place where you dragged the ruler. So you don't need to change your view and the viewport position. So this is sometimes really useful, like now. Okay. Now let's drag this in, and yes, it works. Does exactly what I need it to do. Right, let's turn on the polypaint. So let's compare this thing with the reference right here. So it's pretty accurate. I really like the results. Just exactly what we need, but there's a trick. The tricky part with this is that, well, actually it's not the only one. We have an extra face over here that is not needed. As you can see here, that is easy to fix. Select these guys and select these points and drag it out like this. Let's go back and yep, now it looks correctly. All right, let's go back to reference. Yeah, the only thing that is now not not accurate is that this flat surface is angled. It is like 45 degrees, but right now I have it straight in the side view, but here it is angled. So why I was using and doing those two shapes, because I am going to merge those together in Maya and cut out this shape on 45 degrees with the box, so that this part would be angled. So so let's drop back all of these guys back into Maya. Export one. Control 1. Delete these guys. 1. And same with this shape. Export 1. Import 1. All right. So now, as you have noticed that this part is quite complicated, it's hard to do with a single shape. I had to do this shape, upper part and the lower Picatinny cutout, in order to figure out this thing. Now I have to merge them and make this surface angled. A lot of actions just for that tiny detail, but it's kind of important. So let's apply better material, better shading material. So right now in ZBrush I will store these forms. I'm not going to delete those, so I have them stored here for now. Now let's select these two guys, go into mesh, booleans and union. And it's not working the proper way, and I know why. Somehow Maya is not performing this operation perfectly. Sometimes it's just because it's someplace it is perfectly matches the other shape, and it's not wanting to make the operation, so you have to just like a bit move it a bit. Oh, and actually have some sort of like weird face here. Let's check it out. What the hell is that? Okay, delete. Is that a hole? Yep, it's a hole. Okay, no problem. No problem. All right, exactly. Because I remember I snapped those together. Yes, everything is okay. This is how it should be. So let's just select these and bridge like this. Now select these guys, mesh, booleans, union. Yep, now it worked. Control 1 to isolate, and just let's move these faces back by snapping them into these verts, right this. Okay. So we have to fix it, some parts of it, because Boolean operations in Maya are messing with topology a lot. You have to manually fix this a lot. This is how actually a low poly stage would look like after ZBrush, so it's pretty common thing. I'm not caring too much about topology right now, just cleaning like the main messy parts, like hitting 3 and seeing if there's no holes or something that I can see that this part is messed up. No, this like so, like this, same here thing, like this, target weld. Yeah, now it's pretty much okay. So now what I want to do is go into this box, create a box, and turn it 45 degrees. Minus 45, and from the top view will be much easier to understand. I will cut this part with this box with a 45-degree angle. This will create a proper cutout shape. I hope so. Like this. So let's make sure that this part goes further. Yeah, right. This goes the farthest part over here, like so, and should also figure out the closest part that interacts with the frame. It is this part over here, so that I would place the box somewhere starting from this point with this point, and just select this vertex, go top view and see this, right? So my box cutting out box should start from this point, like this. Well, yes, I guess so. So, crossing my fingers and cutting out from this shape. Okay, so before that, I would like to make a duplicate of this form, just in case. And as well as a the box. Before that, go to modify freeze transformation so that like all of those parameters are zeroed. And if I want this thing back at the same position, I just hit 0 in here and it does it. So before I actually do this, I noticed one little thing, which is like this thing, it's not straight vertically, it is a bit tilted. So in order to do that, go to the side view and I'll add a supporting edge right here so that I could see the tilt. I'll just move it along here, okay. And now let's rotate this whole part like in this manner, like so. Reset the pivot, go to world. Yes, I guess I can tilt it even more, like this. Yeah. Okay, so now let's align this thing to this point, somewhat like this. All right. So now let's cut it out. Mesh, booleans difference. Okay. Looks somewhat like this. Okay, so let's go send this thing into ZBrush and just check how it's gonna look like. Duplicate, import. Yep. All right. Yep, it looks good. It looks good, except this little thingy over there. This can be fixed. Okay, so basically I have to move this edge along the surface of this face, and I can actually do that by selecting this edge and moving it, but right now it is a lot of different edges, so let's merge all these vertices to make it one edge like this. This is pretty crazy looking shape right now, like this. All right, have some shading issues, just make it this thing as a hard edge. Okay. Okay, so select the edge, hold D and align to this face, like so. Just move it without this one, like this. I guess it's gonna work. Looks good for now. So I guess I can connect some of these vertices so that ZBrush could understand this face a bit more. I mean, like, understand it better. I meant like this. Okay, let's send it. Export. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it did exactly what I wanted it to be. Great, this looks good. The only thing is that this part is not smooth. So right now, I guess I'll go into this crazy creasing mode. Well, I'll try to crease everything so that after smoothing it could look good. So select rectangle, crease. What the? So I'm switching back and forth with a D button on the keyboard, which stands for smoothing, right? So that I could check the result of my creasing, like this, right? The bottom part, this side. Crease. Yeah, we're getting close. Like this. These guys as well. And these. Yeah, I guess this is it. I hope so. Not these guys. Yep, now it looks good. Yeah, this looks great. This is exactly what I need. Okay, so right now I can just duplicate this part and make it symmetrical. Duplicate, mirror, same thing here. And yep, here we go. Two sides look the same, merge them together like this. All right. Yeah, this looks proper. This looks good. Okay, let's save the scene. All right, so now let's do this small thingy here. Basically, it's the same like process. So let's go back to Maya and delete these guys over here. So start from the box, delete these faces. Scale it down, move. Okay, and yep, shift drag to extrude. Like this. Now let's edit those vertices. All right. Okay, so now let's add some supporting edge here and here. All right, select all the faces, Control E for extrusion, like this. Flip normals, select these faces, this loop of faces, Control E for extrusion, like this. Edit these like corner faces. Like so. This might not be like 100% accurate, but it's okay. Now let's move those guys out just a bit and send it to ZBrush, and let's check it out. It's gonna look like. Hold on a second. No, it's okay. Duplicate, import. Let's crease at the proper places. Crease, crease, crease. Select rectangle, crease here, here, and here. All right. Yep, looks good. Move up. Okay, so now let's make a right placement for this thing. Move it a bit lower. Can scale it up. And move to here. And yep, this looks good. Can do some more adjustments. I think it's more angled. Like this. Yep, this looks good. Same thing, duplicate, mirror, move up, subtract, merge those guys together. Yeah. All right. Apply vertex paint. Now same color. Looks good. Now let's save the scene. Okay. So another thing that I think should be done is this thing, another extra cutout, and you can see that this thing goes right there. And if you look at this angle, you can see like a small curve over here, like tiny one, but you can see here that there's definitely an edge, and these are two different surfaces. So I'll have to figure out how it looks. Well, basically I think this thing is another shape that cuts the lower Picatinny rail. It is straight here, but it curves over here and creates this thing. So let's block out some. It's out of date. Let's apply okay, so sometimes when I'm doing in Maya, I tend to update my big mesh, like this frame, in order to build something on top of it. So, for example, my initial shape, which is this one, it not represents the actual like state of things in Maya. So for easier blocking out of different stuff, I tend to apply Boolean operations on this like mesh at this current state and drop it into Maya and build on top of that like the rest of parts. So another thing as well is like as you can see, different polygroups. Each polygroup is a different mesh in Maya or in 3ds Max if you export this from ZBrush, because ZBrush understands this mesh as a single mesh and with different polygroups, but like other software sees this mesh as like different meshes. Like each polygroup is a different mesh. So in order to avoid that, you just Control W to make it one single polygroup and export it. Now this thing is one mesh and we can see it over here. So right now it's easier for me to build something on top of this shape than guessing like where should I put this or that. So okay, let's build this cutout part. So obviously start from the box, select faces, delete, leave one face. And now, as you can see here, it is really thin line over here. I have it thick, so I'll just cut a part of it, like the lower part. Move this edge over here, this edge over here, and move it as close as possible to this surface so that it would represent it perfectly when cutting. Because if you move it here, the line actually goes lower. So it would have to be as close as possible to the surface. Like this, like this. This is fine. So, and this surface is curved. Like it's not sharp, so I have to add some edge here and make this soft transition. Right, okay. Now let's move those guys over here, and here comes the tricky part. Select these guys and extrude them. And now let's select this vertex, and I would like to snap it to this corner. Select snap to point and do something like this, right? So right now I'm understanding that I will extrude those faces, and everything that I will extrude, it will create a volume that will cut this frame. So I always keep in mind those things because I have to consider it, and this is how I plan my shapes to cut out stuff, right? Like this. And now let's extrude it one more time, these guys, and take them off like this. Snap it to this one, like so. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna work from the first try because this is like really complex shapes. They're not that easy. And it's 100% okay to do mistakes and then fix them. That's the point, right? Something. No, I guess I'll have to cut the whole way through of this thing. select these and snap them to center of the grid like this so that I could mirror it later. Okay, so let's do test try extrude these guys like so. Also, this transition is smooth enough, so I'm not going to use crease because crease creates a sharp angle. I will do this, just add some supporting edges, flip the normals. Okay, yeah, let's do a test run, export. Don't forget to switch to your Boolean tool because this one is already collapsed. Duplicate, import, move up, subtract, and now just crease the edges. Come on. Yeah, like this. Right. Smooth this thing. Okay. Well, it actually looks not bad. Not bad at all. Let's turn off polypaint over here so that I could see this edge. So right now I'm going to manually adjust some of those vertices in order to make this shape look better. See what I'm doing here? Just manually moving those guys. It's really hard to predict the result of this action, so just have to try. Select each one and do something with it. I need to make this thing straight enough. Now still not that good. I actually don't like this place over here. Let's go back to creasing. Yeah. And let's check it out without the last creasing action. It looks pretty much the same. Okay. How about I raise this part higher? No. Rectangle. Like this. Okay. And now the edge part as well. Should do something with it because it should look good. Yeah. Yeah, this looks better. Whoops. Really not much vertices, but it's really hard to achieve a proper result with those guys. Really hard because the shape is quite complex. Yeah, I think now we found the right position for these guys. I don't like this shading over here. Should look smoother. Like transition over here is like soft. And I have this like bulge over here. Okay, anyway, let's send this thing in this current state back to Maya and make a symmetrical part out of it. Import one, and we can actually see what we can do here with this bulgy shape. Actually, I can do this kind of trick. Move these guys here and move these guys over here so that there's less tension in this part, because as like the more vertices in one, more vertices close to each other, like the sharper edge there will be after smoothing. So let's just move them around a bit more. Now let's delete these central faces. Okay. The pivot should be in the center of the coordinates, the center of the grid, right here. So in order to mirror it in Maya, Control D and scale by x minus 1. Right. So now select these two guys, merge them together, delete history, select. There's still like overlapping vertices. If you select these guys, you can see that verts is 2, which means like each for one part. See this? Here they are. So in order to fix that, just select all the central verts along the grid and just like 24, it should be 12. Merge them, 12, right? That is correct. Now send this back into ZBrush, import, yep. We should do the creasing again. That's the downside of this process. Should do creasing all the time. Yeah, like this, crease. No, not crease, because the creasing considers this part too sharp edge, so I need to figure out geometry, crease. Let's place this value higher. Yep, did exactly what I was supposing for. And this part as well. Turn on symmetry and select the slope of faces. Select lasso and click on the edge, and it does exactly that. And now deselect these guys and these guys and crease. Right, yeah, did it. Okay, so this looks different. Why so? These guys moved somehow. I don't know. Let's adjust those. Yeah. what I also don't like here, you can see the not best shading right here. You can see the line, really subtle, but it is there. So in order to delete that, I will just like delete the center edge loop, go to Z modeler, like place cursor over the edge, hold spacebar, delete edge loop complete, and just click it. Boom, you got it. Now let's smooth, and you see no of that line already. Yeah, the shading looks better. Yeah, this looks good. This looks okay. Great. Let's turn on Polypaint here and here. So far so good. You can see that this, actually this part of the gun is really complex, really complicated in terms of different shapes, cutting the main frame. Only one thing left over here is this small cutout, so it's gonna be pretty easy. I'm just gonna eyeball it, not going to use even reference for that. Just save the scene, duplicate, and I'm going to import a box in here. As you can see, right in my export folder, I have a different set of different objects that I'm always use. So simple box and cylinders with different amount of edges. This is really useful so that I don't need to create like a new cylinder with proper amount of edges. I already have them like in OBJs. So let's select box, and why I don't create box in ZBrush, for example, like from here append cube 3D, because the topology of this cube is somehow really bad, because my cube is simple. It has 6 faces, right? And this one is with crazy topology. Have no idea who figured out who in ZBrush team guy figured out that this topology for a cube is good. I don't know. So you can turn this into a nice topology cube using ZBrush. You can go into initialize, set all these numbers to 1 and hit cube, and here you go. But it's too long, you just can import the cube and that's it. So I'll delete this one. So right, let's do this cutout. Scale it, set to subtract, move to the folder, turn off wireframe, and just place it where it should be according to the reference. Should be wider and closer to the tip, right? Yep, something like this. This looks good. Also let's do this thing. This cutout for serial number plate right here, if I'm not mistaken, for the serial number plate. This plate contains like some numbers all the time. I can make an assumption that this is a serial number plate. I might be wrong. So this one actually has beveled corners, so the box is not going to, like this untacked box is not enough. We need to bevel the corners, so I'll just like do a placeholder of it like so, and now I'll send it to Maya and do the bevels. Export one. Delete this guy. Okay, now just select edges and bevel. Adjust the amount of beveling at one segment. 0.5 is, yeah, 0.5 is okay. Now let's add supporting edges. Connect to, right, I set to. Edges. Make sure I select, yep, 2. Yes, right. Now it worked. Like this. And same here. Like this. Okay. So let's send it back to ZBrush. Import. Yep. Yeah, this looks good. Now I can actually use the same part as the plate itself, not the cutout but the plate. So this thing is a cutout. Now what I just need to do is to duplicate this part and move it into the folder, since this is still part of the frame, but turn on this arrow, which means that this is a different object, and when the Boolean operations are gonna come through, like this thing will be in different subtools like this. So okay, now this is already a different color plate. Now let's scale this thing like this and move it up like so. Okay, because obviously this is a metal like part, so it's different, and it just sticked into here. Okay, great. Save the scene. Always save the scene. So the next part that I'm going to do is the trigger guard. Let's do this one. This part is not going to be hard. Let's go into into Maya, excuse me. And we have this trigger guard mesh over here, right? We just need to update it just a bit, to edit, delete these faces, delete. Go into perspective mode. Actually, delete these guys as well. Turn on the symmetry. Let's move those guys a bit higher. Well, actually, for now, let's just okay, let's extrude this thing like this and delete this thing. Turn off symmetry, delete this part, and now we have this straight line. Now let's adjust it. Yep, like this. I will need to add a bit more edges to this because, as I said before, I'm going to use these meshes for low poly. This is too blocky, too low poly, so I need to add some more geometry to it. Like this. So I'll just click S for multi-cut and just add some more edges. Make the silhouette smoother. Yep, same thing here. This one I can just bevel. A couple more segments, go into vertex mode and adjust the vertices accordingly. Add supporting edge here as well as here, and let's add a bit more here like this. Okay, this looks good. So flip the normals, select all of them, and extrude snapping to the center. Let's go to the top view and see it's not snapped. What? Right, like this. And delete these faces. Control D to duplicate, and -1 scale X, and now merge those guys together. Select all the, I can well, something weird happened here, so okay, select these guys and scale them in into each other like this, and 64, so it's going to be 32 after merging. Yep, 32. Flip normals. All right. So according to the reference, the trigger part guard is always a bit thinner than the frame. So let's make it thinner like this. Or even like this. And as you can see, this part goes outwards just a bit. Not 100% sure, but let's make it going outwards. First of all, move it further into the frame, like so, and turn on symmetry, and let's delete the history. Yeah, like this. And now somewhat like this. Let's move this guys like this. And same thing here, because it curves. It's not going straight into this. This thing have a curve to it. So add extra edges and define this form a bit better. See, these guys are not reaching the frame. Need to fix that. Go in, make it deeper. Still not enough. Like this. Same for the top. Yeah, that's okay. This is already good. let's make it a bit thinner. Same thing with the top guys, they're not moving entirely into the frame. Now they are. And let's move these center guys a bit above the above those that are on the edge, like so. I can now just select them here and move it so that it could represent the form a bit better. Like this. I can move those guys even further. Oh, I thought so. I was moving the wrong guys. Yeah, I need to move these guys. So as you can see, it goes even further like this. It have its own, like, it's not 100% straight, it is like curved as well, so I have to consider this. Moving vertices. Yeah. Okay, let's go and export that into ZBrush. You see I'm not duplicating this one because this part that represents the plate, it starts a new like chain of different meshes, so I go back to this one that is the last one in chain of the frame. I can actually put the arrow on the frame and duplicate this one. The cool thing that it's already in folder because it was duplicated in the middle of the folder, so just import what I did there, and let's crease the sides. Let's go into geometry and adjust the outer crease, and it did not work properly. Okay, let's do this manually. Okay, this looks according to the reference. Let's double check it. So, well, you can see this thing is like, it's more softer transition. Mine one is too hard, so should consider that. Let's select these words and move them like this, and yeah, it's you can see here it's going a bit further than this point, exactly like I have here. I'll just move this plate further, that's no problem. Just want to make this part looks nicer and rounder, like this. Same for this side. Yeah, this looks good. I like this. This looks good. This looks great. Trying to see the reference. Is it? What bothers me is that this shape, it's not parallel to a straight horizontal line. As you can see here, like imagine this is a horizontal line, and I'm trying to understand, is it correct? It's really hard to understand. Like here in this reference, the camera is placed somewhere above, just a bit above the gun, and this same thing right here is quite the same. So okay, I'll assume that it's not horizontally perfect. I'll keep it like this, just like this. Okay, so now let's adjust the plate. So here's the cool part about ZBrush and any like Boolean based program, that you can edit this. There's no like problem. Hide this one, select by alt clicking on the surface this thing, like mask the half and move it in, and no problem, you can do that. You can fix anything you want. Right now you're not really much caring about the topology, how all of those shapes are coming together, because you're just adjusting the topology of each individual part. And this is kind of cool part about ZBrush and this method, that it's somewhere in between CAD programs and classic subdivision like polygon modeling, because like you have this like toolkit of a CAD program where you can like edit and move and control the shapes, like big shapes that are cutting our like mesh and other shape, but still you have access to topology of those faces, of those meshes, and that's kind of cool thing, which like creates this weird blend between programs, and like this is cool and interesting in its own way. I mean, this method with ZBrush. So another thing I want to mention, like the hierarchy of this stack. As you can see, this thing pops out because it's placed lower than this cutting tool. If we move this thing lower, this thing will just disappear. See this? Yeah, because now it affects this guy. And like this hierarchy is the thing that you should consider. Okay, let's go back to this plate and select this side and move it. Well, yeah, it's not going to snap 100% exactly into it, but it's not that bad. It's not that important, just somewhere there. Looks good still. Okay. So you see that the frame part of the gun starts to like build up. It looks more than a reference. So let's continue. Let's save the scene and let's go on.